Hi, and welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Manuel, and I will be your host for today's session presented by VIAS3D. Today's webinar is focused on SimUnits, a flexible licensing model that uses a shared pool of tokens for all SIMULIA simulation disciplines. You will discover how this model helps you to scale your simulation jobs and terms, all while reducing complexity and administrative overhead. I am pleased to introduce our speaker, Yushi. Yushi leads the electromagnetic simulation team at VIAS3D and brings over 10 years of experience in microwave and RF design, antenna system, signal integrity, and power integrity. He holds a master in electrical engineering from the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and he is also a Dassault Systems certified instructor for multiple CST courses, working with both commercial and government clients. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Yushi, to guide us through today's topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to the webinar. And today's topic is actually going to be one of the, I would say, to a lot of people, boring topic to talk about licensing, but I think it's a very important topic to address and to get right because it directly impacts your purchasing decisions and how you use the tool. And I don't have a ton of slides, so at the end of the presentation, I do encourage you to ask questions because this topic can be simple, but a lot of nuance to it. And I will try my best to kind of articulate the differences between the different licensing types that are available today, and you can decide which one works best for you. Okay. So to dive into it, here's today's agenda. I'm going to talk about the current licensing options and what's available today on the for most of our users, right? And what's new in this unified licensing model? What are the benefits? And I'm going to present some use cases so you can kind of see it in action, and so you can get a better understanding of how you can take advantage of this new licensing. I mean, if you're already on the new licensing, great. And I think my hope is that you would get some more insight into how you can potentially use the tool. And I'm going to open up the floor for a Q&A session at the end. And I do ask that you raise the questions at the end of the presentation, and once we get through it, and I think I hope I will be able to address a lot of these questions with the slides I have, and hopefully present some typical scenarios to get the points across. Okay. So let's take a look at Dassault Systems as a company. There are a lot of brands, and when we talk about electromagnetic simulation or structural simulation, it falls under the SIMULIA brand over here. So that is the space we are operating in, and that is the licensing we are talking about today. And Dassault Systems does have a lot of licensing models available, and some of you are already taking advantage of this. And like I said, there's some legacy licensing, or I should say traditional licensing, and some are on the Dassault Systems license service already. So today's topic is going to be mainly on the SIMULIA brand, which governs the simulation in general. Right, so Dassault Systems does have other tools. The most well-known being CATIA, SolidWorks, and of course there are some other tools available as well. And today we're going to address the SIMULIA brand topic when it comes to simulation. And the presentation is going to be heavy on electromagnetics. I'm going to touch on the structures and also some fluids simulation just a little bit, but the main point is going to be on electromagnetics because that's what we are targeting, and I'm just trying to get the points across so that what options are available so you can make a good decision. Okay, so we'll talk about the current licensing, and here's the license dialog. I think most of you would see. That is what we call the traditional licensing, and typically this happens when you have been a CST customer for a very long time, right? So the traditional licensing applies to you for the most part. And if at some point you've switched and your dialog would no longer look like this, but let's say you are a traditional user for over 10 years, right? And that's the licensing you see. And it lists all the features that you have on your current license. That tells you what features you have access to. And for the most part, you have a front end, you have a software process to allow you to run the model. The front end allows you to do the front end allows you to do the modeling, right? You can build up the model, import the geometry, define the excitation, boundary conditions, the whole 9 yards, right? When it comes to the software process, that's where you actually do the number crunching in the background. We call it the back end because you kind of think of it that way. Now you do have acceleration tokens. That unlocks additional hardware, let's say, for example, a GPU or multi-core CPUs, if you want to take advantage of those. And on top of that, you have additional features when it comes to, let's say, importing. You do have the EDA import option available to bring in, let's say, PCB files to the EDA files. And you can also bring in, let's say, chip interface, and Gerber import is somewhat of a legacy format, but there's an option to do that as well. And in the new licensing, everything is basically more streamlined. So you can kind of think of what you have here. They just reshuffled everything and reorganize everything to make it a little more streamlined. And I'm going to tell you the benefits of that and in a little bit. So we see a lot of these features, right? Add-on features, filter design in 3D, antenna megas, fast 3D, Spark 3D. We're going to talk about a little bit of that in a little bit in the next slide. So this is the window you should be seeing if you've been a CST customer for a long time, right? And the new licensing came out a couple of years ago, and that's why we are doing the webinar to kind of educate the customer base to see what options are available. And sometimes it does make sense to switch, and sometimes it doesn't, right? So, I mean, this is this is going to serve as an educational session to educate the audience to make the good decision on the or let's say next year's renewal or purchase. Okay, so let's talk about the FlexNet licensing, which is the traditional licensing. And like I said, if you've been a CST customer for a long time, I'm talking about pre-2018 days, you are most likely going to be on this licensing model with the FlexNet. So on the left side, we have the modules and tools, right? So inside the little light blue rectangle, we see the 3D simulation, and the 3D simulation encompasses a lot of these CST solvers, right? You can see the solver icons over here for the most part. If you are working in the high RF microwave area, you are most likely going to be using the frequency domain solver or the time domain solver. And CST's approach has always been complete technology, meaning you can address all application scenarios covering from, let's say, DC all the way to daylight, right? So across all frequency spectrums, where you'll be able to solve. And some of the specialized solvers, for example, particle tracking solver, particle in cell solver allows you to solve particle dynamics, right? And what's new since 2018 is that they basically add in the low frequency tool in Opera 3D to it as well. So with the front end, you'll be able to get access to Opera 3D. But what we see on the right in the red rectangles, right? That's something you have to buy additionally on top of the base package, right? So antenna megas, filter design 3D, if you want to add any of these features, you have to buy them separately, okay? So if you have access to them, there are some nicely coupled workflows you can use. So let's say, for example, the frequency domain solver you can couple with the Spark 3D to make a nice workflow to investigate coronal discharge and also a multi-paction type of analysis. And like I said, all these are additional. So, I mean, of course, there's going to be additional charges to them because it's, an add-on feature, right? And for the most part, if you're only using it for a specific purpose, it will serve you pretty well. But if you are using any other tools over here on the right in the red rectangular box, I think it's going to be a really attractive offer on what I'm going to present. Okay, so let's talk about the typical use case when it comes to FlexNet. Like I said, front end and also solver process, right? And the front end allows you to model, and with the base traditional package licensing, you do have access to one front end and one solver process at any given time. So the front end and solver process are really decoupled, and let's say you only have one seat of CST, right? So that's the typical scenario, and some of you may have multiple. So the scenario is going to differ from customer to customer, right? And then from use case to use case. Now, let's talk about the typical case, one front end and one solver process. So at any given point, you can have one user to access the front end to do the modeling, and you can have one user to solve the model at any given point. So for the most part, floating license is the typical configuration, and there are other options available as well, but the floating is the typical option. So the licensing can be installed on a centralized, let's say, solver server, and client machines can connect to it and check out the license accordingly. Now, with this one package license, no GPU access, right? So you're going to need GPU acceleration tokens to unlock hardware, basically. Right now, the solver is per job basis, either high frequency or low frequency. So the traditional licensing does not distinguish the solver type. So as long as you're using a solver, hey, I'm going to need a solver process to do the number crunching. Okay. Now let's add one acceleration token to it. Right. So that is going to unlock the solving capability. Right now, you have access to one GPU device. Right, what that means is that one GPU card, as long as you occupy one slot, it can be PCI Express being the most common. If it is installed on one PCI Express slot, it's going to consume one acceleration token with the traditional licensing. Now, the GPU can be used to power the job, right, to make it run faster on a lot of the solvers. Let's say time domain, integral equation solver, asymptotic solver, for example, and also some other solvers can take advantage of GPUs as well. So that is to speed up the simulation run. Now, the GPU cannot be used to run additional jobs. That is the sole purpose of a GPU acceleration token, or I should say acceleration token in general. Now, you can use the acceleration token to run parallel jobs. So let's say you want to do a parameter sweep or optimization or distribute the frequency points when it comes to a frequency domain solver, solving multiple frequency points at the same time. You can use these acceleration tokens to do that. And when it comes to distributed computing, you can distribute out to multiple nodes, so you can solve this, the solution twice as fast, right? And depending on how many GPUs you have acceleration tokens you have access to, the number of nodes or frequency points or excitations you can process will differ. And it's not a linear relationship. So if you have one acceleration token, it's going to unlock one GPU, and two acceleration tokens, two GPUs, but three acceleration tokens unlocks four GPUs. And for the most part, we don't see people with a whole lot of GPUs in a single host system. So 3 GPU, 4 GPU configuration being the most common configuration we have seen. And your case may be a little different, but you can always reach out to us if you need additional pointers or advice when it comes to hardware. Okay, so let's talk about the SIMULIA product portfolio. So we talked about the product portfolio the SOL can offer in a couple slides ago. Now, in SIMULIA, here are the physics that you can solve. So CST falls under the electromagnetics domain inside of this SIMULIA product portfolio. So inside of this portfolio, you can do structural simulations in Abacus, let's say power flow and X flow and fluids. And if you want to do motion or multi-body type of analysis, you would use SIMPAC to do that. And if you want to use wave-6, you'll be addressing the vibroacoustics application area. So all these tools are unified around 2018 or so. So that the licensing is more streamlined. So you're basically combining all these front ends and the solvers, and we're going to break it down and reassemble in a way that is more flexible. So that's what this is. This new licensing is all about. And let me move on to the next slide over here. So in the previous screen, we have the light blue box and we have the red box, right? But now everything is just combined. So it's basically breaking down the front ends of all these tools, right? If you have access to the front end, so traditionally speaking, I guess the front ends are a lot cheaper compared to the solving, right? And I mean, having access to an interface doesn't mean you can get a solution. So the solution, the solving part is usually the most expensive one. So what this licensing does is to break down all the front ends and the back ends, and then group all the back ends together. Now the front ends they're still going to be specific to to that respective tool, right? So CST front end, for example, you're grouping all these antenna maggots, the VIAS3D, Spark3D, EDM, and WaspNet, and CST interface. Combine everything into a single extended front end. Now, with this new licensing, you will be able to access all these tools, the front end. Okay. Now, when it comes to solving, we are going to use the same backend on the CST side with across all these modules, and also the tools that I just showed you a little earlier in the previous slide, right? So in Abacus, CS electromagnetics and also structures being the most commonly used combination, and of course you can use the fluids combination as well to look at let's say power flow and X flow type of application. Now with this new licensing, so like I said, the back end is all combined, right? So when it comes to solving these jobs, depends on the solver you are choosing, the consumption rate is going to be slightly differently. So we break it down into high frequency and low frequency. So high frequency is going to consume a little bit more. Now low frequency is going to consume a little less. Okay. Now with the new licensing, it does come with one requirement. You need to use it on a physical server and with TPM 2.0, or I should say, if it is on a physical server, no requirements whatsoever. All you need is just run some executable, get some kind of computer ID, and then we'll be good to go from there. Now, if you are running a virtual machine, which is pretty common on, let's say, enterprise companies, if it's easy management, right, for the IT team. Now, if you do run a virtual machine, it does have certain requirements, meaning that you need to run it on a Hyper-V with TPM 2.0 support, right? So that's a requirement for virtual machines. For the most part, if you have a physical machine, it's straightforward, right? Same thing as FlexNet, right? No additional things that you need to do on a physical machine. So with the SimUnits can be used to unlock hardware, right? And let's say you can access more CPU cores or more GPUs if you want to, using the same unit tokens as you're solving the job. So the same SimUnit tokens can be used to solve additional jobs as well. So it's kind of think of the acceleration token plus the solver process combined, right? Like I said, the backend is more streamlined. So you basically turn everything into some kind of common currency, so you can do whatever you want with it, right? Whether it be using more hardware or solving more jobs, provided that you have the correct number of them, right? So if I look at the chart over here to showcase the benefit of the new licensing, and on the left over here, we see a lot of features, right? Basically just breaking down by tools, and Abacus, FE-Safe, iSight, Tosca, they all combined into the established portfolio for SIMULIA now. Now CST being the new addition to the SIMULIA portfolio, and also PowerFlow and XFlow, Wave 6, SimPack, those are combined in this new licensing. So the traditional license in S2P, the solver process that we saw in the previous slides, that is dedicated to CST only. You cannot use the same solver process to power your Abacus job or FE-Safe job or Tosca, right? The trend recently has been, multi-physics, multi-scale type of application. So you do see some nice workflows combining CST plus Tosca or iSight, for example, right? So shape optimization comes to mind when you are combining CST and Tosca. So with this new licensing, you can use the same license, SimUnit tokens, to power both tools, as long as you have the respective front ends. So the same thing goes for CST plus, let's say, iSight for optimization or design of experiment, right? So a lot of flexibility is, added to this new licensing, which were not previously available. Okay, so if you look at the extended tokens, so now SimUnit tokens, it checks all the boxes, right? Because it's common to all these tools that you see on this list right here. And The unified license model does come in two flavors. One is tokens and one is credit. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit to hope get a better sense of what I actually mean by tokens and credits. So let's take a look at the typical consumption rate on these new licensing. So for high frequency and low frequency, the consumption rates can be different, like I said a little earlier. Now, for the most part, if you are using a modern hardware, for the most part, you are not going to have more than 32 CPU cores. But in some cases, workstations or servers does have more than that. So if you use this table, 17 is the base number you're going to need in terms of SRU tokens, SimUnit tokens that you need to power a high frequency job. Now, if you want to use more cores, you can do that by just adding the corresponding number of tokens to it. So we can see a theme over here. So I bolded the letters from 32 to 64 to 128 to 256. So what you see is that as you add 5 more to it, it doubles the CPU core count, right? So if it is falling in the middle, you can see a different number. So for example, up to 51 cores can be accessed if you have access to 20 SRU tokens in this case, right? If you add, let's say 17, add 5 to it is 22, and then 22 to add 5 to it is 27, right? So you're just doubling from there. But like I said, for the most part, unless you use, let's say, really powerful hardware, you typically don't have that many CPU cores. But of course, if you have access to it, you should definitely leverage that, right? Now, on the low frequency side, we see the consumption rate being a little bit lower, right? So high frequency requires 17. Low frequency solvers only requires 10. Let's say I'm working on some sensor design, right? I'm designing a capacitive sensor, right? Using the electrostatic solver, you only requires 10 tokens to run it. And the same thing goes for the low frequency suite of tools in Opera to run the model. And you only need 10 is the base, the absolute minimum, right? If you want to access more cores, you'll be able to, use more tokens to throw at it to unlock additional cores to make the simulation go a little faster. And now on the right side is credits. So it also distinguishes between high frequency and low frequency. Now, high frequency is going to, consume a little more number of credits per hour compared to the low frequency. And the difference between the tokens and the credits is that tokens is consistent usage. You pay for it upfront. So let's say I want to buy a CST package, right, with the new licensing. You get a set number of tokens, whether it be 17 or 22, right? And you have a set amount. That's the ceiling, right? And from there, you would use these tokens to power your runs accordingly, right? You have consistent usage 24/7, typically for a whole year. And if you buy a perpetual license, obviously you have access to it forever, right? Now, the credit, on the other hand, works a little differently. So think of it as a prepaid credit that you get. You basically consume as you go. So once it's consumed, it's gone, right? So you start off with let's say 1,000 credits, right? It's going to consume 12.61 credits per hour. And you would just do the math, and it depends on how long the job's going to run. You would consume them as you go. Let's say I run a job for exactly 1 hour. It's going to consume 12.61 credits. And whatever you have remaining, you can use those credits to power your next job. And the difference is, the between token and the credits is that credits are a little more flexible. And it depends on your typical usage, right? If you have consistent usage in your team to run, a lot of simulations throughout the year, hey, token's probably the way to go. Now, if you don't run a whole lot of simulations, credit is probably the way to go, to be honest. Right, so I hope this table is going to help paint a picture in what is possible in terms of options to run your jobs with this new licensing. And let's take a look at the GPU, right? And a lot of people, the GPUs are a little more affordable now, especially the RTX series cards. They're pretty easy. They are affordable, more affordable than before, and a little easier to get your hands on them. So if you do have access to GPUs, you can use these tokens to access them, right? So up to this point, we're talking about on-premise. We're not talking about cloud yet. Okay, so we're going to address that in a little bit. Now, it's in terms of number of accelerator devices, meaning the number of GPUs occupying a single slot, for example. Right, so one accelerator device means you're occupying a single slot. Now, 2 devices means you're occupying 2 slots on the same, system. Right, so 5, if you just 5 is the base number, and if you want to double that, just add 5 to it. Right, so I bolded the numbers over here as well, so you can kind of get a clear picture as to how many tokens you're going to need for its particular GPU configuration. The same thing goes for credits. Right, so credits again is consumed as you go. So once you consume it, it's gone. Right, so you have a pool that is getting smaller and smaller. But the good thing is that you can just get more credits as you go. Right. And you can throw a lot of these credits at it in a short amount of time to address your peak usage needs as well. Or versus the token is more consistent. So you have a set number of tokens, you can never exceed that ceiling. Right. So 24/7 for a whole year, you would just use these same number of tokens to run as many jobs as you want. Or you can queue them up and then just have them run in one after another. There's no limitation on the number of jobs you can run. I mean, the only limitation it would be, how long the job's going to, take, right, to finish. Now, credit, on the other hand, you can run a lot of these jobs simultaneously. So you control how fast these credits burn up and or how slow, right? It's totally up to you. So on this, let's take a look at a couple usage cases when it comes to DSLRs. Now, the CST front-end extended plus 17 SRUs, that's the most common configuration, right? So in a couple slides ago, we talked about the combining of the front ends. So what it means is that, hey, you have access to more capabilities now. Hey, having access to more capabilities still requires something to power it, right? So to crunch the numbers to get you a solution. So that's where the SRU tokens come in. Like I said, 17 is the base number for high frequency jobs, and a lot of our customers actually do high frequency type analysis, and some do focus on just the low frequency side of things. Now, with this extended licensing, EDA import is already included, right? Meaning that you don't need to buy additional add-on features to import PCB files. And the high frequency jobs require 17 SRU tokens. Now, low frequency jobs only require 10. Right, and like I said before, add 5 SRUs to it to unlock a GPU. Right, add 5 to it, doubles the GPU count, etc. Right, and also the CPU on the CPU side, if you have access to more than 32 cores, you can double that count by just adding 5. Now, if you want to add one more, it's it's somewhere in between. Right, so it's probably gonna be around 38-ish, around there. So, anyways, Antenna Magus, VIAS3D, Spark 3D, Opera, WaspNet, all are included in this new licensing. So if you have access to these tools, previously you may not want to use it because there's no need, but it's there. Think the flexibility of a potential solution using any of these tools will be attractive for some people. And to be honest, if you add 1 or 2 of these, add-on tools, the pricing more than justifies itself, to be honest. So, like I said, the same SRU tokens can power Abacus runs and structures, fluids, and the multi-body dynamics and the vibroacoustics area, if you have those needs. And structures and electromagnetic simulation being the most common combination. So that's why we're mentioning Abacus over here in structures simulation, using the same SRU tokens to power the respective jobs. Now let's take a look at the next scenario, right? So the CST extended front end plus 25 SRU tokens. So SIMULIA does have various promotions available throughout the year. So depending on when you purchase it, various promotions will be available to you. So currently, there's one promotion with the 25 SRU tokens getting CST. And with the 25 SRU tokens, what can you do with it, right? So previously we talked about 17 tokens plus 5. That adds up to 22, right? Hey, I have 3 remaining. What can I do with these 3 SRU tokens? Or you can access more cores. You can potentially run, additional jobs. So looking at 25 SRU tokens, it allows you to run 1 high frequency job plus a GPU and plus up to 51 cores. So that's where the 3 leftover SRU tokens come in. From 17 to 21 gives you up to 51 cores in CPU, if you have access to that, right? But if you don't, then it's going to take whatever's available on your system. But you do have access to 1 GPU to speed up the simulation. Now, using the same 25 SRU tokens, you can run 2 low-frequency jobs, right? So if you're working with sensors, you'll be able to get 2 of these jobs out, or you should say running at the same time. And of course, using your hardware, right? And 2 low-frequency jobs, one on 32 cores and the other one on 64 cores, right? So imagine one job is using 10 SRUs, the other one is 15, right? So low frequency requires 10, but if you add 5 to it, it doubles the CPU core count, right? So that's why you come up with the 32 cores and 62 cores for 2 jobs on the low frequency side. Now, there's also another promotion right now with 4 extended front end plus 80 SRUs. So with this, you have a lot of flexibilities over here. So you can run 4 high frequency jobs with 32 cores and 2 of them with, let's say, 1 GPU. And you can also run 3 high frequency jobs using 32 cores, right? And the 8 low frequency jobs simultaneously with 32 cores. So a lot of flexibility with the 80 SRU tokens. You can also refer to the table previously to kind of get a sense of, hey, what combination will be available to me with the 80 SRU tokens. So like I said, 80 is the ceiling, and you cannot exceed that. But anything lower than that, you can just mix and match however you want. All right, so let's take a look at a little comparison in a table form, when it comes to FlexNet and also unified license model. With the base package, the front end access allows you to get access to all the solvers, right? All the 3D solvers and also 2D solvers as well. CST does have over 30 application-specific solvers that you can choose from and run. Now, the 3D CAD formats are all supported, and meaning that the most common files in STEP, SAT, SAB, all those will be able to be imported without any issue. Now, CST does come with a circuit simulator, and parameter sweep and optimizations are built in. So CST works a little differently compared to our competitors, where they charge you, let's say, parameter sweep runs or optimizations. That's additional charge. But with CST interface, I should say the CST package, it just comes with it, right? So everything on the left over here, you can do right now, right? Either new licensing or old licensing, it doesn't matter, because those are the capabilities that just comes with the tool. Now, if you take a look at the unified license model in the SimUnit license model, you're unlocking more of the features. So like I mentioned a little earlier, ED import token, antenna magus, EDM Studio, Filter Designer 3D, Fest 3D, Spark 3D, Opera 2D, and 3D, all right, together. And on top of that, WASP.NET. So you have access to all these front ends with the same SRU tokens scheme. So it offers way more flexibility in the type of jobs that you can run. And like I said, sometimes you may not think of solving a problem in another way, or there's another easier workflow to use to do certain things. But when you have access to these tools, you're going to change your perspective a little bit, right? Because you have access to more tools to address your problem, basically. Right. So if we look at the licensing, traditional versus the new unified license model, and the traditional licensing, you do have token schemes as well, but those are specific to that specific tool, right? So it's, you cannot use that the solver process to power something else, for example, right? So CST, if you want to power a CST run, it's going to be locked to a CST run, right? Abacus run, etc., right? Now, it does enable you to solve or use parallel computing to speed up the simulation, provided that you have the corresponding tokens, right? So it only works with traditional tools, and it's a lot of times it's a standalone installation where the licensing is dedicated, and you cannot do anything else outside of that tool. Now, when it comes to SimUnit tokens and also SimUnit credits, it's using a different licensing. And that is on the unified license model, right? Using DSLS, the Source Systems License Service. And with this, it's basically a shared pool of currency, if you will, right? You can use that same SimUnits to power all the SIMULIA tools. Like it talked about previously in the slide, a lot of these tools under the SIMULIA banner can be solved using the same SimUnits. And you can, in a lot of cases, you can work with traditional tools as well. If you have the respective front end, it can work on the new licensing, because the license manager would have to be DSLS in the unified license model. Now, you do have some on-cloud options. So depending on the role or product you purchase, some of the on-cloud options may be available to you as well. And currently, the Abacus jobs, you can use the cloud tokens or cloud credits to power your on-premise runs. But CST is not quite there yet, but it's on the roadmap. So stay tuned on that. So a lot of flexibility there. You can leverage the cloud computing resource with these cloud tokens, or you can use your on-premise hardware, or you can rent out your own cloud resource to do the number crunching, right? So let's say the typical cloud services in AWS comes to mind. I mean, that's really popular, and it depends on what vendor you want to choose. And the Soul Systems does offer its own cloud solution as well. So just want to make sure that there are options out there when it comes to these on-cloud credits and tokens. Now, how do you decide whether I should use token or credit, right? And like I said, the on-premise option and also on-cloud option will be applicable, but currently CST is not taking advantage of the cloud credits or tokens yet, but it is on the roadmap. So stay tuned for more information. Now, when we talk about SRU tokens, right? So it's consistent usage. If you know, hey, I'm going to run simulations a lot throughout the year, right? I'm going to purchase a set number of these tokens, and I'm just going to run them in series. I can queue them up. If you work in a team environment, you can also just submit. So whenever the previous job is finished running, the next job will start, right, etc. So it runs in a serial manner, right? Now, if you look at credit, it works a little differently, right? Because like I said, you can throw a lot of these credits at it if you want to. You can run as slow as you want to. And let's say sometimes your projects don't come in. I don't need to run as many simulations, right? So you don't really need to consume these credits in one go. It's not just sitting there to be wasted either. So it all depends on how you use the tool, and each scenario is going to address your specific needs a little better. Okay, so it all comes down to, hey, how you use the tool and what can be optimized to your specific use case, right? So like I said, the token model, it allows for consistent simulation usage, and it's when it comes to budgeting, because you pay for it upfront, right, when you purchase. So it's more predictable. I mean, there's a set amount, and I'm just going to invest this amount, and then I'm going to be able to run simulation all year long, right? Whereas for credit, let's say sometimes you do have a burst need on certain projects, and just happen to need to run a lot of simulations, and I'm going to need a lot of firepower to throw at it, right? So I like to use the pipe analogy over here to kind of show you what I really mean. Now, with the token, right, it's a fixed pipe, right? You can run a certain number of simulations. Hey, it's fixed throughout a year. You can run long, right? But credit, you're basically expanding this pipe, allowing more simulations to be run on the same bigger pipe, right? So address your peak usage need, right? To close this out, I'd like to just talk about some benefits of the unified license model. So you basically streamlines the access. So front end and back end are streamlined. So you're just dividing the front end and all the tools under the CST product portfolio, and also the various front ends under the SIMULIA banner, and also the back end, right? Everything grouping together, right? It's more cost effective depending on how you run it. So for a lot of cases, if you run, let's say, multi-physics analyses, this is going to be really cost effective. And it allows for collaboration and optimization as well. So let's say an Abacus user and CST user, if you happen to be working in the same company, you do need to address multiple aspects of the design, right? So you would basically use the same SimUnit tokens to address these designs. And ultimate flexibility when it comes to token plus credits. Previously, it's only the token scheme, but right now you do have access to the credit scheme. So like I said, credits is just buy as you go. and you can consume it when you need it, right? So to address those peak demand periods. So on cloud licensing option is also available. And yeah, I'd like to close it out with some useful links for you to kind of take a look at. So I mean, I'll send out the slides after the presentation and along with the recording, so you can get some more information if you are interested in. Now, if you have any information at all, now the call for action is to contact us. Just reach out to us if you have any questions on this. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor for questions and answers. Do we have any questions?
So thank you, Yushi. We have a couple of questions here in the chat. So the first one right here is, can I combine my classic license file that uses FlexNet with this unified license model?
That's a good question. So for the most part, the two are not compatible because they use different licensing managers, right? And if you're interested in converting or just using the new license, let us know. We'll find a way to kind of make that happen. And of course, you know, with the new licensing, you gain additional possibilities in the tools access. So there's a certain fee associated with it. Our sales team will be happy to chat with you on what options are available.
All right, thank you. We have another question here. Are the CST multiphasic thermal and mechanical solvers included with the new licensing?
So the answer is yes. So the new licensing, you can kind of take a look at it as a beefed up traditional license, right? So I mean, the way that you access the tool is slightly different, but you gain all the capabilities of the traditional licensing in CST. So the mechanical solvers, geared toward electronics, and also the thermal solvers will be included in the new licensing as well. So you're only gaining more without losing anything.
All right, thank you. We have another question. Can I use distributed computing with the SRUs?
Most certainly. Like I said, in terms of capability on what you can do, you are not limited by much, if any. Right. So whatever the traditional licensing can do, you can do with the new licensing. So yes, the answer is yes. You can use the SRUs to run the distributed computing with CST.
All right, thank you. Here's one big question that says, we are interested in using the add-ons tools, but we don't have that many tasks to justify the use. For example, we have a project that only lasts for 6 months. Okay. Is it possible to buy the add-ons license for a half year?
That's a good question. I mean, I think, we do see customers with these kind of questions from time to time. So the answer is yes, you can buy. We do have short-term licenses available, but like I said, sometimes it may be more cost-effective for you to just migrate, right? So you get the additional capability without having to spend more money. So various promotions will be available throughout the year. So I think we do have some promotions going on right now. And we'll be happy to chat with you on your particular scenario to see what works for you. Yeah.
All right, perfect. We have one last question that says, thank you. How do we install the other software other than CST?
So that's a good question. Now, with the streamlined approach in licensing, everything is just comes with it, right? So one installer takes care of all these additional tools because this licensing is more streamlined. So previously, it doesn't make sense to give you a tool without a license, right? But now, with the proper licensing, all the installers are packaged into a single installer. So you just install CST, everything is under that umbrella. All the add-ons will be included as well, provided that you have the proper licensing. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Yushi. Seems like those are all of the questions we have. I'm going to drop here on the chat or landing page where you can learn more about SimUnits. You can download this brochure. If you have any question, please let us know. You can contact us. and we'll be happy to assist you. And that brings us to the end to this webinar. Thank you again for joining us, and a special thank you to Yushi for this great presentation. If you want to
So Manuel, I think we lost audio for a little bit, but yeah, thank you everyone for joining. And if you have any questions at all, and I'll send out the presentation slides a little bit after the presentation, along with the recording.